1. The trauma link. Understanding the core connection. PTSD and BPD often stem from early trauma, especially chronic emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. Research shows high rates of PTSD in those diagnosed with BPD, up to 50 to 70%. Both disorders involve a dysregulated nervous system, especially around fear, safety, and emotional memory. Small diamond 2. Emotional dysregulation and triggers. PTSD. Triggers bring someone back to the past trauma, fight, flight, or freeze. BPD. Emotions shift rapidly based on real or perceived abandonment, rejection, or criticism. The body keeps score. Both disorders manifest physically: sleep issues, hypervigilance, self-harm, panic attacks. Small diamond 3. Relationship struggles and identity distortion. BPD. Unstable relationships, fear of abandonment, idealization, devaluation patterns. PTSD. Withdrawal, emotional numbness, or anger outbursts can alienate loved ones. Both struggle with self-identity and trust, making relationships a source of both need and fear. Small diamond 4. Stigma and misunderstanding. BPD is often stigmatized as manipulative or untreatable. PTSD is more recognized but still misunderstood, especially in non-veteran populations. These stigmas create barriers to care and increase shame for those seeking help. Small diamond 5. Treatment that works. Dialectical and trauma-informed therapies. DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, is the gold standard for BPD, but also helps with PTSD. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and trauma-informed CBT can relieve PTSD symptoms. The key is building emotional regulation, safe connection, and body-mind awareness. Small diamond 6. The hope story. Recovery is possible. Real voices. Many with BPD and PTSD have found peace through therapy, boundaries, and support. Healing isn't linear, but it is real. Progress looks like fewer crises, more self-compassion, and stable relationships. Sharing stories reduces isolation and promotes community-based healing. Hey everyone, welcome to In the Mind's Shadow, the podcast where we take deep dives into mental health, trauma, healing, and everything in between. I'm your host, your name, and today, we're talking about two heavyweights in the mental health space: borderline personality disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder, how they intertwine, how they differ, and more importantly, how we can begin to untangle from their grip. If you or someone you love lives with either BPD or PTSD, or both, this episode is for you. Segment 1. What are we dealing with? Host. Let's start with the basics. Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is a mental health disorder marked by intense emotional instability, fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, impulsivity, and often self-harm or suicidal behaviors. At its core, BPD is rooted in a deeply dysregulated sense of self. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, develops after exposure to a terrifying or traumatic event: war, abuse, accidents, assault, anything that overwhelms your ability to cope. PTSD often brings nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, avoidance, and emotional numbness. Now here's where it gets complex. Many people with BPD have a trauma history. In fact, childhood trauma is one of the most common contributors to BPD. That means these two conditions, while distinct, can feed into each other. Segment 2. The crossover, when PTSD meets BPD. Host. So what happens when someone lives with both? Imagine this. Your trauma has wired your brain to constantly scan for danger, PTSD. Then layer on the emotional instability and fear of abandonment that comes with BPD. Now every rejection feels like a threat. Every silence feels like you're being abandoned. And your body reacts like you're in a war zone. This combination can make life feel unbearable. Relationships become battlegrounds. Trust is rare. And inner peace? Almost impossible, but not totally. Segment 3. Signs you might be dealing with both. Host. Let's break down some signs that someone might be struggling with both PTSD and BPD. Emotional outbursts that feel explosive, often triggered by rejection or conflict. Intense fear of abandonment even when it's irrational. Chronic feelings of emptiness or worthlessness. Flashbacks or nightmares related to past trauma. Self-harming behaviors or suicidal ideation. A pattern of unstable relationships, either idealizing someone or suddenly cutting them off. Dissociation. Feeling disconnected from reality or your body. If this resonates with you, you're not broken. You're surviving, but there are ways to move forward. Segment 4. The healing path, solutions and treatments. Host. Alright, let's talk solutions. Dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. DBT is the gold standard for BPD and incredibly helpful for PTSD too. It teaches skills in 4 areas: mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. Life-saving stuff.
Trauma-focused therapy, like EMDR or CPT, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, helps the brain reprocess traumatic memories. CPT, cognitive processing therapy, helps you change the way you think about trauma. Both have strong evidence for treating PTSD. Medication. While there's no pill for BPD itself, SSRIs or mood stabilizers can help manage anxiety, depression, or impulsivity, especially for those with PTSD overlap. Routine and structure. For people with emotional instability, a daily routine creates predictability. That's calming for the brain. Community and support. Whether it's group therapy, online forums, or a trauma-informed support system, you need people who understand and don't judge. Self-compassion practices. You are not your trauma. You are not your disorder. Learn to speak to yourself like someone you love. Practice mindfulness, journaling, breathing. Small things add up. I want to say something to anyone listening who's in the dark right now. You are not a burden. You are not broken beyond repair. Trauma lied to you, but healing tells the truth. You can rebuild your nervous system. You can find stability. You can love and be loved. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen, and it starts with one brave step.
Behavior and sense of self. Dissociative symptoms can potentially disrupt every area of mental functioning. Examples of dissociative symptoms include the experience of detachment or feeling as if one is outside one's body, and loss of memory or amnesia. Dissociative disorders are frequently associated with previous experience of trauma. There are 3 types of dissociative disorders: dissociative identity disorder, dissociative amnesia, depersonalization, derealization disorder. The Sidran Institute, which works to help people understand and cope with traumatic stress and dissociative disorders, describes the phenomenon of dissociation and the purpose it may serve as follows. Dissociation is a disconnection between a person's thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or sense of who he or she is. This is a normal process that everyone has experienced. Examples of mild, common dissociation include daydreaming, highway hypnosis, or getting lost in a book or movie, all of which involve losing touch with awareness of one's immediate surroundings. During a traumatic experience such as an accident, disaster, or crime victimization, dissociation can help a person tolerate what might otherwise be too difficult to bear. In situations like these, a person may dissociate the memory of the place, circumstances, or feelings about the overwhelming event, mentally escaping from the fear, pain, and horror. This may make it difficult to later remember the details of the experience, as reported by many disaster and accident survivors. Dissociative identity disorder is associated with overwhelming experiences, traumatic events, and/or abuse that occurred in childhood. Dissociative identity disorder was previously referred to as multiple personality disorder. Symptoms of dissociative identity disorder, criteria for diagnosis, include the existence of 2 or more distinct identities, or personality states. The distinct identities are accompanied by changes in behavior, memory, and thinking. The signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. Ongoing gaps in memory about everyday events, personal information, and/or past traumatic events. The symptoms cause significant distress or problems in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. In addition, the disturbance must not be a normal part of a broadly accepted cultural or religious practice. As noted in the DSM-5-TR1, in many cultures around the world, experiences of being possessed are a normal part of spiritual practice and are not dissociative disorders. The attitude and personal preferences, for example, about food, activities, clothes, of a person with dissociative identity disorder may suddenly shift and then shift back. The shift in identities happen involuntarily, are unwanted, and cause distress. People with dissociative identity disorder may feel that they have suddenly become observers of their own speech and actions, or their bodies may feel different, e.g., like a small child, like the opposite gender, huge and muscular. The Sidran Institute notes that a person with dissociative identity disorder feels as if she has within her 2 or more entities, each with its own way of thinking and remembering about herself and her life. It is important to keep in mind that although these alternate states may feel or appear to be very different, they are all manifestations of a single, whole person. Other names used to describe these alternate states including alternate personalities, alters, states of consciousness, and identities. Borderline personality disorder, BPD, is a mental illness that affects about 1.6% of adults in the United States alone. According to the National Health Services, NHS, it is the most commonly recognized personality disorder and affects a person's thoughts and feelings about themselves and others. Those who develop BPD tend to begin exhibiting signs by early adulthood. The condition generally worsens as they move into young adulthood, but it can get better as they age. Read on to learn the most common symptoms and biggest risk factors of BPD to be mindful of. Leaving. Unfortunately, these behaviors may cause loved ones to withdraw, resulting in exactly what they feared and were trying to prevent.
Unstable relationships. BPD tends to make maintaining healthy relationships very challenging. This is because the affected individual tends to be quite needy, intense, and mistrusting, not only with romantic partners, but also with friends and family. Additionally, a person with BPD tends to have a very black and white way of thinking about people, seeing them as all good or all bad. This causes frequently shifting attitudes towards others that range from extreme closeness and love, idealization, to extreme dislike or anger, devaluation, says the National Institute of Mental Health.
Unstable self-image. People with BPD also struggle with identity disturbances. Sometimes, they may feel good about themselves, but other times they may feel hatred toward who they are, perhaps seeing themselves as bad or evil. Additionally, this self-image can change depending on whom the person is with, as they often copy the actions and behaviors of others. Their ability to be independent and autonomous is very impaired, says John Oldham, MD, professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, in SpeakingWithHealth.com. They may also have constantly shifting ideas of who they are or what they want in life, resulting in frequent changes to jobs, friends, lovers, religion, values, goals, and even sexual identity.
Impulsive, risky behaviors. Impulsive, risky, and often self-destructive behaviors are also common for those with BPD. These behaviors can include gambling, spending sprees, shoplifting, or sabotaging success by suddenly quitting a good job or ending a positive relationship, says the Mayo Clinic. In some cases, these behaviors may even put the individual in danger, such as by driving recklessly, practicing unsafe sex, abusing drugs or alcohol, or binge eating. While engaging in these activities may help them feel better in the moment, they can do more harm than good to themselves and their close relationships in the long run.
Cigarettes, or an overdose that can bring relief from intense emotional pain. While in most cases these self-harming behaviors are parasuicidal, that isn't the case for everyone. As the source reports, about 10% of people with BPD take their own lives. Suicidal thoughts. While in most cases these self-harming behaviors are non-suicidal, that isn't the case for everyone. As the source reports, about 10% of people with BPD take their own lives. Suicidal thoughts and behavior are not uncommon for those who struggle with BPD. This suicidal behavior includes thinking about suicide, making suicidal threats, or actually carrying out a suicide attempt. A symptom of BPD is emotional volatility, with intense mood swings that range from extreme happiness one moment to despair the next. These mood swings can be triggered by things that others would simply brush off or not even notice, such as, if a colleague was too preoccupied to say hello in the hallway, says Health.com. While these mood swings tend to pass fairly quickly, typically lasting only a few minutes or hours, they may persist for several days at a time in some cases. Chronic feelings of emptiness. People with BPD may also struggle with chronic feelings of emptiness, as if there's a hole or a void inside them, says HelpGuides.com. In extreme cases, the source says that individuals may feel as if they are nothing or nobody. Because this feeling of emptiness is uncomfortable, they may try to fill the hole with things like drugs, food, or sex. While these things may offer temporary relief, nothing seems to make it go away for good. Explosive anger. In addition to extreme mood swings, people with BPD may also struggle with intense anger. Although such anger is often triggered, Health.com says they react in a way that seems exaggerated or disproportional to an event. These reactions can include frequently losing your temper, being sarcastic or bitter, or having physical fights, says the Mayo Clinic. Although this anger is most noticeable when it is directed outwardly toward others, HelpGuides.com notes that people with BPD spend a great deal of time being angry at themselves. Paranoia. Paranoia is another common symptom of BPD, where an individual may have suspicious thoughts about others' motives, says helpguides.com. As a result, they may struggle to trust others. Episodes of paranoid thinking or paranoia can range from mild and temporary to severe and chronic depending on the person. Dissociation. In some cases, often when under stress, people with BPD may experience dissociation or a feeling of losing touch with reality. In such a state, the National Institute of Mental Health says they may feel cut off from oneself, seeing oneself from outside one's body, or feelings of unreality. Difficulty feeling empathy. Those with borderline personality disorder often have a difficult time feeling empathy for others. Studies have shown that those with BPD often have reduced activity in the brain regions that support empathy, which can lead to difficulty maintaining interpersonal relationships. This reduced activity means that those with BPD have a hard time understanding and predicting how others may feel in certain situations. Stable plans and aspirations. Another indicator of BPD is a feeling of instability towards career plans, aspirations, and goals. Those with BPD may lack the motivation or energy to bring their plans to life or feel scatterbrained while making these plans. BPD causes frequent changes in likes and dislikes, which often makes it difficult for those who have been diagnosed to commit to one career path. BPD patients may also struggle with an unstable self-image, which makes it challenging to grow in a career. Genetics. BPD is believed to be caused by a combination of factors, one of which is genetics. If someone in your close family, such as a parent or sibling, has also been diagnosed with the mental illness, the NHS says the genes you inherit may make you more vulnerable to developing BPD. But, so far, there's no evidence of a BPD gene. Mind.org.uk says, genetics might make you more vulnerable to developing BPD, but often it's due to stressful or traumatic life experiences that these vulnerabilities are triggered and become a problem. Childhood distress. What types of stressful or traumatic life events might trigger these genetic vulnerabilities? A few that are noted by the U.S. National Library of Medicine include either real or fear of abandonment in childhood or adolescence, a disrupted family life, or poor communication in the family. The NHS adds that experiencing chronic fear or distress during childhood may also contribute. Another factor that may contribute to BPD is sexual, physical, or emotional abuse from childhood. There is evidence that those diagnosed with BPD are more likely to have had a history of abuse or other distressing experiences during childhood. Studies have shown that 40% to 76% of people with BPD report that they were sexually abused as children, and 25% to 73% report that they were physically abused. Childhood neglect. Another form of childhood abuse that can be more passive but just as impactful is childhood neglect, which can be both physical and emotional. Examples of physical neglect include denying a child basic necessities such as food or water. Emotional neglect is when a child's basic emotional or mental needs are ignored. Serotonin abnormalities. Another factor that is believed to contribute to BPD is abnormalities with neurotransmitters, chemicals that transmit signals between cells in the brain. One neurotransmitter that is of particular concern is serotonin. According to Healthline.com, serotonin is a hormone that helps regulate mood, and improper amounts of it cause noticeable changes. These changes can include depression, aggression, and difficulty controlling destructive urges, notes the NHS.
In a mental health emergency, it's crucial to act quickly. If the situation is life-threatening, e.g., suicidal ideation, violence, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. For non-life-threatening but concerning situations, contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. You can also chat with a trained crisis counselor at 988lifeline.org. The first thing you should do if nobody is in immediate danger is to try to de-escalate the situation. One way to do this is to help the individual get centered. If their thoughts are running wild and they can't control them, helping them to become centered can give them the control they need to manage the situation. Note that if the person is having hallucinations, is under the effects of drugs, or is having a severe crisis, de-escalating the situation might not be possible. You can try speaking gently and slowly in a low tone of voice. Don't make any sudden movements, try to sit still. Don't touch the person in crisis. Stay with them, but unless they behave in a way that is likely to cause harm, don't attempt to restrain them. Ask them how you can help. You might offer the suggestion of relaxation techniques, but don't try to force the issue. If they say they are not interested, let it go. Listen to what they are saying, but don't challenge their thinking if it is irrational or delusional. Sometimes the person will know that their thoughts are irrational, but at other times, they won't.
Thank you so much for watching this presentation. It is imperative that you take care of your mental health and understand that others can appear normal, but could be in crisis. To be aware is to be alive. 12 Gauge Investigative. See you soon.